Okay, you're welcome. My name is Legendary Boss 247, and in this video, I'm going to be showing us how to read the Tailor's tape, right? So I have three different tapes with me here. Now, this green one runs from 0 inches to 60 inches, right? Your a normal Tailor's tape will have the inches graduation and also the cm behind here, right? We're going to be explaining that to you shortly. We have the inches here and the cm here. Now I have this which runs from 0 to 60, and it's a wide tape, a wide one. I still have this one here, also the same thing, just that it is slimmer, it is smaller, right? This is a small one, this is a wide one. It also runs from 0 down to 60 inches, right? Which is also 150 cm behind here if you are checking the cm side, right? Then I have this yellow one here. This yellow one is not a very common one. It is the double length tape. It runs from 0 down to 120 inches, or behind here you see your 300 centimeter cm, right? So it stops at 300 centimeter while it stops at 120 inches here, right? So whichever one you want to use, they are all okay, right? It is a matter of choice, right? For me, I have lots of them, right? This is just a few of them. So we want to study how to read this tape accurately, right? Some persons find it difficult to read their tape correctly, right? I've come across so many persons and I ask them, show me a quarter of an inch, they don't know where it is. Or if I say show me 0.75 of an inch, they don't know where it is, right? And all of these points are very important if you are dealing with patterns or anything you're doing, so long as you're dealing with measurements when it comes to fashion, right? So quickly we'll be looking at how to read our tape. Now, any of these are the same. If you put them together, they are the same basically, you see, right? And we also have this, right? So they are basically the same, but I know that there are some tapes when you put them together, you'll find out that your 2 inches is not exactly at the same point with each other, right? So one advice I will give is that if you're using any tape, be consistent with it. What I simply mean is the tape you use in taking your measurement is the same tape you should use in drafting. Do not change the tape, right? Because sometimes it may be that there will be a little difference, although very small sometimes, most times, between the tapes, right? So just be consistent with whichever tape you want to be using. If you're using your green tape, always make sure you're using your green tape, except you're very sure that they are all the same, right? Okay, now let's use this green one here. Like I said, this has two graduations. We have the inches area and then the cm. Now the inches area here runs from 1 to 0 to 60, like I said earlier, for this tape, and that is the point where we use in Nigeria here and most African countries, right? So if you're watching me from Nigeria, you are conversant with this part here. But then if you go to UK, US, and maybe France, I am very sure they use more of the cm, right? Now, to be frank, the cm area is more accurate than the inches part, right? Because it has more graduation. At every point here, there's a graduation there, so every point has a name there. But then there are some points here, you point here on the inches part, you don't see any marking there, right? So we'll just approximate at this point, right? But then basically this will still give you what you want. So now let's study how to read this point here, the inches point. Now your conversion is not a hard task, right? Let's assume you're watching a YouTube video done by an American and they mention 23 cm. You don't have to worry yourself. The moment you hear that, you can simply check the equivalent on your inches part by checking behind here. The same way, if you are conversant with the inches and if you're conversant with a CM and somebody mentions 14 inches for you, you simply turn behind your tape and you know the equivalent at the CM, right? So that is a very simple thing to do. Now, let's come to our inches part here. We have 1 to 60, 0 to 60. Now, I want to let you know that if you hear about 1 yard of fabric, 1 yard is simply 36 inches, right? 36 inches. And if you're talking about one trouser length, that is 45 inches, right? And that is how it is. So on your inches part here, you have, here is the starting point here is 0, right? Nobody is going to write 0 for you there because they assume you should know that the beginning, when you have not gone anywhere on the tape, you are at 0, right? So then we have 1 here, we have 2 here, we have 3 here, we have 4 down to 60, right? Now you know that when you divide one orange into 2, you're going to have half, right? So if we go further to divide these inches into 2, it is going to be half of an inch, right? So from 0 to this point is half inch, and from 0 to here is 1 inch, from here to here is 1.5, from here to here is 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, down to 60, right? But that's not the end. In between the half, when you divide the half, we have an orange here, we divided it into 2, we have half of an orange, right? 2 halves here. When you divide these halves into 2, you have quarters, right? So there's 4 quarters in one orange, right? 4 quarters, right? So when you divide this into 2, you divide the halves into 2 again. Now we have quarter of an inch, quarters, right? So this is a quarter, this is half, these are 3 quarters, right? From here to here, 3 quarters. When you put 3 quarters together, let's say we take one of this quarter out, this will be 1, 2, 3, which is 3 quarter. We'll be left with 1 quarter to make it 1 whole, right? So 3 quarter is slightly bigger than half, but not up to 1 yet, right? So we have a quarter, half, 3 quarter, 1, 1.25, 1.5, 1.75, 2, 2.25, 2.5, 2.75, 3, 3.25, 3.5, 3.75, 4, down to 60, right? And then we have another smaller one which we'll be talking about much later, when you divide a quarter into 2 again, right? You divide 1 quarter into 2, right? Now I want to tell you the mathematical figures that represent all of this, right? We know that 1, O-N-E, is 1, right? And then we know that T-W-O is 2, right? But what about half, right? If you want to write half in mathematics, it is simple. We want to write half. Our half is 0.5, right? Or you can still write it in maths as 1 all over 2 when you are writing in fraction, right? So if you come to me and I tell you that go and use half inch, or I say 0.5, or I say 1 over 2, know that I'm talking about the same thing. They're all the same. What about the 3 quarter? 3 quarter here. 3 quarter here. 3 quarter. Let me show you here. 3 quarter here. What about 3 quarter? How do you write 3 quarter in mathematics? It is simple. 3 quarter is 0.75, or 3 all over 4. It simply means when you divide something into 4 parts, when you consider 3, we call it 3 quarter, right? 3 over 4, 3 out of 4, right? So you should know all of these names. So that is why here, from here to here is 0.75, or I can call it 3 quarter, or if I want, I call it 3 over 4. All those 3 names means the same thing. 0.75, 3 quarter, or 3 over 4, the same thing. Just as we have half, 0.5, or 1 all over 2, they are all the same thing, right? So get your points clear. When I tell you 1.75, 1.75, that is 1 and 3 quarter. 1.75, 1 and 3 quarter added to it. 1 and 3 quarter. What about 2.75? 2 and 3/4 added to it. Now, what about 2.5? Remember that 0.5, 0.5 is half. So 2.5 is 2.5, or 2.5, or 2 whole number 1 all over 2. We are talking about the same thing. This is 2.5. This is also 2.5. When writing in English, this is 2.5. Right? So these three names, they all mean this the same point. Just as 1.75, or 1 whole number 3/4, or 1 3/4, they all mean this point. Right? So I need you to get your point. This is 5.75 here. This is 5.5. This is 5.25. This is 4.25, 3.25, 2.25, like that. 0.25, your quarter of an inch. A quarter is when you divide something into 4 and you consider one part. This is a quarter. Your quarter of an inch, quarter, can be written as 0.25, or 1 all over 4. It simply means when you divide something into 4, consider one part. One part. 1 over 4. 1 over 4 is a quarter. See the distance. Let me show you here. This is a distance of a quarter. From 8 here to this point, that's a quarter. Now, I'm not showing you here because we have this metal covering here, right? You cannot see it from that point. But this is the distance of a quarter. From 7 to this point is a quarter. From 7.25 to 7.5 is a quarter. From 7.5 to this is still the distance of a quarter. No, a quarter, right? 2 of this our smallest division. Whenever you have 2 of this smallest division, it is a quarter. So this is 7.25. This is 7.5. 7.75, 8, 8.25, 8.5, 8.75, 9, 9.25, 9.5, 9.75, 10, 10.25, 10.5, 10.25, 11, down to 60. Right? So you should get your points correctly and know what it means. If I tell you a quarter of an inch, you should know what I mean. That is 0.25. That is 1 all over 4. See it here. If you are counting from the beginning of the tape, you know we have this metal. The metal has fallen off from this one, so we can see it. This is a quarter. This is a quarter. This is 0.25. This is 1 over 4. All those three names, the same thing. This is half inch. This is 0.5. This is 1 over 2. The same thing. This is 3/4. This is 0.75. This is 3 over 4. The same thing. This is 1. Of course, we all know that one. This is 1.25. That is 1.25. That is 1 whole number 1 over 4. This is 1.5. That is 1.5. That is 1 whole number 1 over 2. This is 1.75. That is 1.75. 1.75. 1.75. 1 whole number 3 over 4. This is 2. We all know this one. This is 2.25. That is 2.25. That is 2 whole number 1 over 4. This is 2.5. That is 2.5. That is 2 whole number 1 over 2. Right? So you continue that way down to 60, right? So whichever point you have forgotten, you can go back, replay the video. So those are the major points on our tape, and we shall be using it in the course of these tutorials, right? So get your points right, know how to read your tape. Thanks for watching. My name is Legendary.